Let's cut the pleasantries here. This visual novel is seriously fucked up. I've read a lot of sadistic, dark-themed visual novels, and whilst I'd hesitate to say this one is good, it is certainly exceptional at making the reader uncomfortable. How to Build a Great Girlfriend, and by the way, that name is already bullshit, is a short yuri, yandere visual novel following protagonist Sumire, a girl who is extremely not right in the head. She's got no friends, no social skills, and her only hobby is getting validation from strangers on the internet. You know, like unemployed YouTubers. Unsurprisingly, the internet is not nice to her, and the one like-minded individual she happens to connect with and decides to meet IRL is in fact a fake account created to lure her in. Realizing the account was fake, and now surrounded by a bunch of guys that want to abduct her to a hotel, Sumire panics. And then she barfs everywhere, which turns all the guys off and they leave. It ain't heroic, but like a kick in the balls, it gets the job done. Amidst the panic, she meets a girl in passing who startles Sumire since she looks a lot like her ex-girlfriend. But she doesn't have time to worry about it as she scurries home. Now, completely traumatized, as if she didn't have enough issues already, she rushes to tell one of her internet friends, whom she calls Doc, who is essentially Sumire's online therapist. Doc encourages Sumire to fight past the experience and go to her college classes anyway, and with reluctance, she does decide to go, which is where she runs into the girl she met in passing, who she'll come to know as Nazuna. If this were your typical Yuri story, I'd say, and thus began their heartfelt journey of love. But it's not, so let me just say, run Nazuna, run while you still can. How to Build a Great Girlfriend has a very promising start. The protagonist is a hyper antisocial hikikomori with clear mental problems, and through a traumatizing event, she meets a girl who is her complete opposite, outgoing with lots of friends and seemingly very grounded in life. However, unfortunately, the only thing that gets fucked harder than Nazuna in this visual novel is the pacing itself. The initial blooming relationship between Sumire and Nazuna is sort of enduring in an extremely awkward way, if you discount Sumire's clear obsessiveness. The extreme awkwardness in their conversations sort of reminds me of when I was an antisocial kid in middle school who couldn't talk to girls. And that shit still haunts me at night, so I'd much rather not experience it while reading visual novels. Okay, thanks. But it's very clear that the similarities between Nazuna and her ex-girlfriend already have ignited the dormant yandere in Sumire, and she slowly starts spending more time with Nazuna despite her friends telling her that Sumire has stalker vibes. For once, the rude friends of the heroine are right. Nazuna, please, this is your last chance. Whilst Nazuna notices some of Sumire's unhealthy tendencies, she also sympathizes with her and shares her own problems with Sumire, of which they bond over. Now, almost perfectly in her grasp, Sumire realizes that Nazuna has been running away from home and staying with friends, so she invites her over to stay with her for as long as she needs. Nazuna accepts and, yeah, that's rough. And so ends what I would call the happy half of the visual novel. A very disappointing aspect of How to Build a Great Girlfriend is that it skips over time periods of multiple days often, so we don't get to see Sumire breaking Nazuna's sense of self-worth through her manipulative abuse, nor Sumire's slow descent into a yandere abusive girlfriend who doesn't even understand how her behavior is problematic. All we get are multiple time skips where the relationship just gets to the next level of worse. This is a multi-point of view choice visual novel. In the beginning, you make choices as Doc, Sumire's online therapist, where you give her advice that controls Sumire's behavior. Later on, many choices are made from Nazuna's point of view, where you have to do your best to appease the now very much demented Sumire. I appreciated Nazuna's point of view because while she definitely isn't blameless in how her relationship with Sumire ended up, you can see she understands that she needs to be very careful about how she approaches her conversations and actions with Sumire. Thankfully, she's not as naive as she looks. There are many ends to How to Build a Great Girlfriend, but unfortunately they all approach the same formula. Either Sumire cracks early on because of a choice made from her perspective or Doc's, or you make a wrong choice from Nazuna's perspective. In any of these scenarios, it hastens Sumire's yandere, and some form of sexual assault will happen, at worst ending in the death of characters. There are hints in the later half of the visual novel, as well as in the main end, that something much larger is at play beyond the scope of what we see from Sumire and Nazuna's perspectives. Aspects of brainwashing and Sumire's past that suggests some sort of criminal syndicate is operating behind the scenes. Not to mention the fact that Sumire is also taking prescription drugs and employing the use of presumably illegal drugs during some endings. Of course, none of this is expanded upon, and the reader is left with very little understanding of what they just read. None of the endings are truly satisfying, and most of them just abruptly end. Nazuna, for the most part, tries to appease Sumire, but it never ends up working very well. Sumire has an epiphany of sorts in the best end that insinuates that this whole story is just a cycle in a grander scale of abuse, but because of the short length and the time skipping, any end of how to build a great girlfriend just doesn't have any impact. As I previously mentioned, I really liked the idea of this visual novel, but if the writer really wanted to emphasize Sumire and Nazuna's relationships transition into emotional and eventually physical abuse, more time needed to have been given to the build of Sumire's yandere and Nazuna's mental deterioration. But it was actually my fault that I misunderstood this visual novel from the very beginning. Here's what this visual novel really is. How to Build a Great Girlfriend is a visual novel about a socially inept protagonist who befriends and later mentally and physically abuses the girl she thinks she is in love with. The point of this visual novel is not to showcase the devolution of a seemingly cute, opposites attract yuri couple, but rather to just explore how the girl close to society's image of normal can be abused by the girl who is a shut-in, demented yandere femcel. I read visual novels for interesting plot lines and not half-baked stories of abuse with no payoff. It's not badly produced, and at times it will make you feel uncomfortable and mad towards the characters, but it doesn't have much substance beyond that. One thing to note is that there are animated H scenes in this visual novel, and an H scene for every end, so you do have that to look forward to, if you don't mind them looking like this anyway. That's it. Nothing else is worth mentioning. I wanted how to make a great girlfriend, I got how to break a great girlfriend, and now I need therapy, drugs, and ice cream. Goodbye.